You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 91.
A podcast uncovering identity, color, and love, where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Bias.
Do you ever feel a little weary about the compliments that come your way? I used to be so concerned whenever I got a compliment. It was almost like I had a lot of anxiety come up whenever a compliment came my way. And I realized that I didn't actually know how to take a compliment. I was having this conversation with one of my girlfriends, and we were discussing this about how when you get a compliment, it can feel good, but then you start to question it later on, like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And you can sort of spend some time, serious time, spinning around somebody's compliment. And I wanted to break it down a little bit into what's happening, because really, if you strip away each of the things, the kind of chatter that you have in your head about it, there's really only kind of two problems that are going on in your mind or how you're thinking about it when somebody gives you a compliment. And when I'm able to look at it from this standpoint, I'm able to handle compliments a lot better and not spin on them and ruminate so much about them. And that's really helpful because, not spending so much time obsessing about the words that somebody else says has been kind of something that I'm like, I don't want to obsess about this anymore, especially over something that somebody said that was positive about me. I mean, I don't want to spend time obsessing about something negative either, or also like obsessing over a lot of things that somebody is saying, whether it's negative or positive. So like most things, there's only really two reasons, especially when it comes to why we feel annoyed or irritated or even a little bit anxiety. There's usually only really two reasons that we have for having kind of the spinning, obsessing over what somebody says. Is that the first one is that we don't believe what they're saying. So if somebody gives you a compliment, you don't believe the nicety is coming from, you don't believe that it's true about you. Or, you have a different opinion about yourself, and maybe it's a negative opinion. They might think, oh, you are a great writer. And you might like, well, I'm not a great writer. So, and we tend to think of it as if the compliment is actually a fact or something, like as if there's something true about us. Either we're a good writer or we're an average writer or we're not a writer at all, as if those are kind of facts rather than that somebody's sharing an opinion. So in essence, if it doesn't match our internal dialogue about ourselves, then we don't believe them. And that disbelief in what somebody else is saying causes a lot of this kind of other kind of noise in our minds. And the other reason why we can't take a compliment gracefully and let it just be there and then not think about it anymore is because we also don't think that that person should be saying it to us. That's the other reason. We think that that's either we don't think that they should be complimenting us, because sometimes for me, this is something that happened. Why are you complimenting me? I don't think you should be doing that. And the reason I thought that they shouldn't be doing that is because they were doing it because they maybe wanted a favor from me. And I had a series of patterns in my life where some friends kind of use this method of buttering me up, and then would come like this big favor, and oftentimes it was money and other things like that, or borrowing something that I also needed, and they would have it for 6 months or a year. And it took me a while to realize that it's just, I don't think you should be complimenting me. I don't think you should be complimenting me when you want something from me. I think you should ask that without giving me a compliment. The other thing is that I also believe that you shouldn't be complimenting this way. And that should is really sneaky, right? You shouldn't say that compliment this way. Kind of like, oh, you look great in that dress for a girl your size, for a girl your height. Or you speak French really well for an American. Like I've gotten that. And it's something that I considered a backhanded compliment, that somebody's not really complimenting me, because I was thinking that that's not how you should be complimenting people. You should put a full stop after you speak French well, period. No need to continue that sentence. The dress looks good on you, period. And that falls under on a compliment should be given this way. So we don't have an ability to take a compliment because we don't believe them, because we have our own negative self-talk to us. And what they're saying doesn't match what we say to ourselves. So we don't believe them. So we don't take the compliment, and then we end up obsessing and spending all this amount of time on this compliment. Or we think that this is not how we should be complimented, that compliments should come in one way, or that they shouldn't be, you're suspicious of compliments when sometimes somebody is complimenting you and they want a favor. So we have kind of this rules, this script for how we think genuine compliments should be given. And that is really, if you really look inside yourself, I'm almost like 95% that most of the reasons why you're not taking somebody's compliment fall within those two categories. You don't believe it, or you think that they shouldn't be doing it this way. And so what do you do so that you can stop obsessing about compliments and just take the compliment and let it be there and not let it sit in your head and spin for 2 days after it? And one of the things that I found really helpful is that when somebody says something nice to me about my work or even what I'm wearing, is I try to find an element of truth in what they're saying. And this is also very similar advice that I have given for somebody saying something negative about you. It's that you find an element of truth in it, because again, somebody's negative comment about you or positive comment about you is their own opinion. It actually has nothing to do with you. It's coming from their brain, the mess that's going on in their head. And then somehow we then take that mess and use our own mess. And then we just use their mess and our mess all against ourselves. We're taking somebody else's mess, their opinion, and then it goes into our head, and we've got our own belief systems, and we create a big mess, and then we use it against ourselves, and then there's no resolution, there's no benefit at the end of all of this ruminating over it, a negative or positive compliment. So find an element of truth in that positive comment, in that compliment. So, for example, the dress looks good on you for a girl your size. What is an element of truth? Maybe the thing is, maybe you don't believe that you look good in that dress, and maybe you believe that the dress is a great dress. Like, if the person is complimenting you that you look good in that dress, one of the elements of that you could take away is that, that dress is a great dress. It's simply by itself a great dress. It would look good on anybody. And you can believe that part of the compliment and then say, well, thank you. And then not let it be an obsession in your mind. You can say, I can see how part of that statement's true. Yeah, this is a great dress. I happen to get it on sale. It's great material. It's great for this weather. Whatever you can see where you can find that element of truth and approach it from that place, it's a way to acknowledge what that person is saying, regardless of where it's coming from, acknowledging what they're saying and not letting it ruin your evening, not letting it ruin the rest of your week. And I want you to notice something when you find yourself suspicious about somebody else's compliment. It's that we're usually going into their minds. We're usually going, they complimented me because maybe they want a favor. And I want you to notice that, because I didn't realize I was doing this, that I was like, I'm spending a lot of time in their mind. Like, what's their intention? Why are they complimenting me? And that's a form of obsession. You can obsess about whether or not that compliment is true or not, and then you can obsess about where that compliment is coming from. And kind of come back into your own mind, because that is in essence what it means to find the element of truth in that statement. Is you're actually coming back into how you're thinking, which is a form of mindfulness, a form of what's happening inside you, a form of getting to know yourselves. If you're spending all this time wondering what somebody's intentions are, why they did this, or what the next step is with them, you're spending a lot of time in their head. You're trying to figure out their psychology and their all of that, and that's really difficult to do because it never works, and you don't know. And even if the person pretends to know, they might not even really know themselves because they don't have their own kind of level of awareness, consciousness, mindfulness, whatever you want to call it. But when you drop back into your mind about finding the element of truth, is what you do is you increase your awareness about who you are, about what you think about yourself, how negative you think about yourself, which is often the harder thing to do, is to face some of those negative thoughts that you have about yourself that come up for you when somebody is actually giving you a compliment. So when you drop back into your own mind, trying to look at some element of truth in that compliment, you can get out of that other person's mind, and they'll be not in your mind, and you won't spend so much time obsessing about it, and you'll become more aware. And even if you're worried that a compliment is followed by some favor that they may or may not ask of you after a compliment, is that you are going to be so much more aware of what you think about yourself, what you find true in the compliment, that you will be able to then see what's happening around you a little bit more clearly, because you'll be in your mind. You won't be sitting there obsessing about what's going on with that other person and what are they trying to do and what's their next plan, their next motive. You will be more aware, and you will be able to then intentionally direct yourself if a person is complimenting you in hopes of asking you for a favor. So drop back into your mind, find the element of truth in somebody's compliment, and keep practicing that. Find the tiniest speck of truth, and you will be able to take a compliment, and not because that's what you should do, but because it'll help you stop obsessing and spending so much time in somebody else's mind. That's all I have for you this week. I'll check back with you next.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.